From 3 northeast Nebraska counties got together tonight to answer questions about a Nebraska law which governs concealed carry. That law goes into effect next month. It will allow a person 21 years old or older to carry a concealed weapon, including a gun or a knife, without a permit in the state of Nebraska. Tonight, Dakota, Thurston, and Dixon counties hosted a meeting for residents to ensure they understood the impact of the law and how it was passed by lawmakers, then signed by the governor.
Well, it's important about the bill, but it's also important about the process and really talking to people about how the bill got here, which is not just persistence of so many people, but really the second house.
Questions centered around where Nebraskans are allowed to bring their concealed weapons. Many also asked if they had to tell an officer that they're carrying a concealed weapon if they're ever pulled over. Allowing the public to ask questions about the law, that was a big reason why organizers held tonight's meeting.
You know, a lot of people have questions, and this is going to help to alleviate those, because nobody wants to get a penalty or a citation for improper use or carrying of a firearm. And we're hoping to kind of over-edge that and kind of talk to people about things to watch and where to learn and how to get along with this new legislation.
That law will go into effect September 10th. That is 90 days after the unicameral adjourned its legislative session.